Hey guys, Sam Lieberson here with Edina Realty, joined by Shane Hoffman with Edina Realty Mortgage, as always. We've been doing some videos on strategy and multiple offers and programs and stress and all the things. Yep. So we just kind of wanted to take it back to the basics, like, again, forming a sentence, because words are hard.
It is. Super Bowl Sunday was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, anyone in a food hangover? Because I know I am.
That's why the words are.
My innards are killing me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so we wanted to just kind of talk about what's it like to start the process. Where do we start? That's the most common question that I get, at least. And so let's just go back to the basics. And step one, at least for me, I believe, is getting pre-approved. Mm-hmm. So before I like to meet with anyone, I do want them to meet with Shane, fill out an application, and then that tells us what we have to work with.
Right.
So it's just a lot easier if you've already gone through that process. Mm-hmm. Because then we can just hit all the points in our first initial meeting. Right. So Shane's just going to talk a little bit about how to get pre-approved and how long it really takes.
Sure. So. Yeah, so I mean, I think to your point, Sam, in the last few videos we've talked about strategy and, what to do, how to be competitive, all of these things, right? Well, that still starts at the beginning of making sure someone's pre-approved. Right? So when you think about that just means number one is an application, right? And that can be done a number of ways. And I would say 90% of people will just fill it out through my website. Right. Because it's super simple. You do it on your own time,
or
et cetera,
our
et cetera.
app.
Yep, or the app, yep, for sure. But I've sat with somebody just to kind of get an idea of how long it takes someone to fill one out, and it's probably 10 to 15 minutes to fill out. So we're looking for pretty basic information, your employment history, what your assets look like, enough info to pull credit, things of that nature. So that's kind of step number one, is that application. So like I said, most people do it online, but I've taken them over the phone. I will meet people in person, whatever we need to do to get that part done, we'll do. So
easy part of applying online, and does it work with the app too? I mean, yeah, probably.
Yes. Yep.
Is if you're with a big or bigger bank, you essentially just sign in and everything's pretty autonomous, right?
Right. So we have a third-party service that allows you to log into your bank account, and that information flows over to our system. So that just allows us to kind of see, number one, where you're sitting for checking and savings potentially, but also it tells us, employment information as far as direct deposits, things like that. So that's a way for us to verify employment that way as well, which is nice. And again, that stops you from tracking down bank statements, basically, which is kind of nice. So, after the application, we're gonna collect some basic documentation. We always say 222. In our world, that just means 2 W-2s, 2 pay stubs, 2 bank statements. Okay. So if you do the online asset thing, you don't have to worry about bank statements. But so we're going to collect some basic information from you. I would hope most lenders are doing that in order to get somebody pre-approved, right? So what that does, though, is that allows us to kind of figure out a debt to income, right? Which is where the price point comes into play. And then also, if you have something to sell potentially, can you buy before you sell that property? Or do you have to sell that, that type of thing. And that's when we start to get into strategy with Sam on how we're going to present going forward and what kind of price point we're looking at. So that's why we're kind of talking about the basics is, it might sound simple, but that's something you got to figure out first, right? And so yeah, that's kind of step number one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then from there, once Shane's ran the numbers and all that fun stuff, then we get to meet, and then we get to talk about your wants and needs in a home. In this market, I don't want to say you have to settle, but you kind of have to. I'm not saying that you have to settle for a house because it's a house. You obviously have to like it a little bit. So, but once we have that strategy in place with Shane and I, then we can really start to look at all the properties on the MLS, go out, do some showings, and then kind of hit the ground running from there.
Well, and the
So-
other thing that's kind of important to point out too is like Sam and I will talk in very general terms about your
Right.
financials, right? So I don't say, so they've got $1,213 in
Right.
the bank. You know,
Right.
it's more about this is what we're thinking for down payment. This is what we're looking at for a price point, that type of thing. So I mean, we do keep those separate without your permission, of course. Now, there's some people we go deep dive on it
Right.
together, which is great too. But again, that's just part of our job is to be.
That is kind of that's good that you brought that up. That is a huge misnomer about realtors. Everyone thinks that we're all up in their financial business, and we're really not. On the only time that we will even remotely be in your financials is if you're going to sell your house, because then I do need to know like how much is left on your mortgage, what's
Right.
your interest rate, and then I calculate everything and I tell you, here's what you could make from the sale.
Right.
Now that's just what you can make from the sale. I'm not asking for bank statements and like,
Right.
I don't need to see your investment
Yeah.
crap. Like I don't see any of that.
Well, and most agents are just basically like, what type of loan are we doing?
Right.
What's my price point and how much we putting down? Right.
Let's go.
So it doesn't need to be more than that. You
Right.
know? But I mean, going step back again too is just like, I think the importance of doing that early in the process can also improve our situation as well, right? So, you know, with how long I've been in the business, there's just I can look at somebody's credit report and know pretty quickly that, oh, if we do X, Y, Z, we could
Right.
make this improvement to get to this score, right? And maybe that makes a 0.25% difference in your rate, you know, or something like that.
Shane with the
So-
great like little tidbits. Because yes, we always talk about
Right,
the cost of waiting.
right.
And if you waited until, you know, end of the year and we still have to do some credit repair
Right.
kind of stuff,
Right.
well, that could have been a whole year that you could have been working on that stuff. And now interest rates could be at 4.5%,
Right.
5%, who
Yep.
knows when. But there is that cost of waiting.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I always tell people, like, even if you're thinking about it, like, just
Yeah. And
apply.
one of the biggest questions or pushbacks we get from new buyers is, I don't want a credit pull.
right.
So let me squash that for a second for people, okay? It is somewhere between 3 and 5 points to your credit score, okay? So I
Not
think
big at all.
there is this misinformation out there that is 30, 40, 50 points every
Right.
time you get your credit pulled. That's just not true.
Right.
So if someone's at a 750, now your credit score is going to be maybe 745. And guess what?
Right.
That's not going to matter with your qualifying, okay?
Right.
We're not going to say, nope, too bad.
Darn. You're
But-
down 3 points,
Right.
you're screwed.
Right. So now, you know, sometimes it's just like, okay, you're at 690 today. Great, you can get a loan. That's perfect, you know. But if we got you to 720,
Right.
now, you know, PMI might be different, the rate might be different, you know.
Right.
So yes, were you fine at that 690? Sure, but maybe do 2 simple things to get you up 30 points, you know.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a rant.
That was, we spider-webbed
I
so
did.
hard.
Yeah.
And I'm so here for that. That was a lot of great information. But tune in next week. We will be talking about a program through Edina Realty Mortgage that could kind of alleviate that whole cost of waiting if you do get pre-approved.
Teaser.
So, yep. We will talk more about that next week, and we'll see you right back here. Bye, guys.